budget announced building of 6 crore affordable homes, 2 crore in urban and 4 crore in rural India, right at the beginning of his speech which he presented in the parliament. And everyone awaited keenly to hear more, get more details on how these 6 crore homes were to be built. But nothing, absolutely nothing came after that. Not a single statement or a policy measure on who will make and deliver these 6 crore homes. So today on the Realty Debate, that's the question we are raising. Meet my panelists, Sriram Mahadevan, Head Affordable Housing, Mahindra Lifespace Developers, Madhusudan Menon, Chairman Micro Housing Finance Corporation. Here with me in the Delhi studio, David Walker, Executive Director, Sare Homes. We also have with us Arun Mishra, former Housing Secretary, Neeraj Bansal, Partner, Head Real Estate and Construction, KPMG, and of course, Raghav Garg, Director, Garg Group. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. I think, let's have a focused discussion on 4 or 5 key things. At what price can we call housing affordable? Let's just stick to that. That particular answer is what I'm seeking right now. At what price can we call housing affordable? Neeraj, start from there, because in-depth research done by KPMG, if I look at RBI's guidelines which have come this week, it says obviously 10 lakhs is the price. Is that what we will take?
So when you look at, from an affordable housing point of view, the people who are at the lower end of the segment, for them, they kind of monthly income, if you look at about 25 to 30% of what they can partake. I mean, that is what should be the maximum limit which should be there, and which gets them to somewhere around less than 10 lakhs as a number around that. When you look at people slightly on the higher income bracket over there, so 40%, if you take into account absolute value of 40% of what they're earning in the monthly side of it, that is what helps them to be able to service those EMIs. Because you can take the loan, but how do you actually able to service that and, carry out with your own domestic issues as well? Then the further aspect of it, one can take up to 50% as well, so, but I think clearly, when you look at the metros aspect of it, the housing will somewhere would come around, say, less than 50 lakhs is something which you would want to call, at least from an affordable perspective, for a mid-segment aspect of it. When you go towards to a tier 2 or tier 3 cities over there it will go down to other, like sub 30 lakhs is a number which will come as like a more of an affordable housing side of it there.
So that 10 lakh figure which the Housing Ministry talks about, which RBI talks about, who's building those homes and how are they getting built? Arun Mishra, at least throw some light on that, because you've been part of the policy making. RBI has changed norms for 10 lakh rupee homes, but where are they getting built?
You see, when you talk about affordable housing, normally the calculation is that whatever is your annual income, 4 to 5 times is that which you can afford.
Okay.
So if my annual income is about, say, 2 lakh rupees, I am in a position to afford a house which is about 8 to 10 lakh rupees. That's where the definition of affordable housing comes in for the EWS category, particularly those people whose income is below 2 lakh rupees per annum.
Okay.
Secondly, when you look at a small town where the land cost is about 20 to 25% of the total building cost, and you look at 1600 to 2000 rupees as per square foot cost of construction, and you take a 400 square foot house, it comes to about 8 lakh rupees, and you add 2 lakh rupees for the land, it comes to about 10 lakh rupees.
Okay.
So these are the two things which we thought, which is, which brings this figure of 10 lakh rupees into the picture. It's primarily for those economically weaker section people. And when you come to the LIG category, of course, it becomes slightly higher. The second question that you raised is who are building these houses?
We'll come to that question later. I just want to say, okay, if you're going to focus our discussion on the 10 lakh category, or are we going to actually take it up to say, look, in tier 1 cities, even people who can afford a home of 50 lakhs and below can call it affordable housing. So that nomenclature itself is a big one to debate, because if I look at the figures in India, there are only 4% of the country's population which earns more than 5 lakhs of annual income. Imagine 96% of India earns less than 5 lakhs per annum. Sriram, it's a big data point which actually tells you that barring a very few developers, most developers are building for 4% in India currently. Am I correct?
Yeah, Manisha, I think the data point which you have referred to is quite correct. And we also, as Mahindra Lifespaces, till we ventured into affordable housing, we were also concentrating on the top 5% of the population. And that is where you see most of the inventory overhangs in most of the major cities. So there is this 95% of the population where the market is there, which is underserved. But at the same time, we should also take cognizance as to why most of the developers are concentrating on the top of the pyramid rather than the bottom of the urban pyramid.
We'll come to that a little bit later. I know that there is a reason, but if you, when you ventured in affordable housing, Mahindra ventured into it, did you get into it thinking that, okay, we're going to build homes under 10 lakh, or did you think that affordable, that limit was 10 to 25? What pricing would you call affordable?
See, I think you have hit a very right point. Affordable is the most abused kind of terminology which is being used. When we started thinking about entering into this space, we actually set ourselves a target of entering this space between 5 to 15 lakhs. But as the ball started rolling, then we realized that possibly 5 to 15, 5 to 10 is becoming a bit of a challenge. And that's why we then shifted it to 10 to 20 lakhs. So we launched both these projects within the price bracket of 10 to 20 lakhs.
Okay, so you ventured into this space. First of all, everyone considers this as a very bold move. Mahindra and Tata's getting into affordable housing, and even you had to raise the benchmark. You had to say, look, 10 lakhs, 5 to 10 lakhs is not possible. 10 to 20 lakhs, maybe we can attempt. Raghav Garg, what would your affordable price limit be? What has your own experience been? What kind of pricing can you build affordable housing at?
So first of all, we launched a project at 4.5 lakh rupees, 30 kilometers to 40 kilometers from your studio.
Okay.
So we were sub 5 lakh category, that is 40 kilometers from central Delhi. And even till date, we sell our product as 7.5 lakh rupees. So we are maintaining that sub 10 lakh category in affordable segment. And our idea was initially, as Shri Ram has said, was 5 to 10 lakhs only. But that was 2008-9. Now we are sitting in 2015. The construction costs, the land costs, and everything else have gone up. It's difficult to stick in that category, but we still want to be as close as possible to 10 lakhs. So say you can say 12 lakh, 13 lakh, okay. But we still want to remain in sub 15 lakh category.
All right.
The another point that I would like to mention is, first of all, for the first time we are talking about 4 crore rural houses. Up till now there was no discussion of rural housing itself. So that's a welcome step.
Okay.
And second thing, housing being a state subject, the lot needs to be done not by finance minister but by other ministries in together, so that state brings with bylaws that help affordable housing a reality.
All right. Okay, we'll get there in terms of what needs to be done to fix this. So now we're going to probably divide the debate between absolutely what you call affordable housing, which is 10 lakhs and below, or stretch it up to 20 in at least bigger cities, and above 20, let's not call it affordable. Let's just say that those are budget homes. Having said that, then your big question is, who are we building these affordable homes for? Who is the customer? I think that's a big question to ask. Neeraj, who's the customer for sub 10 lakh homes? Can he, the people that are being targeted for sub 10 lakh rupee homes, actually afford to buy those sub 10 lakh rupee homes?
So when you look at the customer for this, this is basically the daily wage earners and the people who've got some regular income coming in. They are like people who have got some odd jobs that they're doing at the current time. So they have those incomes coming in, which is like Mr. Mishra also mentioned, like getting up to 2 lakh over there. But these are not people who've got very defined bank accounts till now. I mean, till the time this Jan Dhan Yojana was launched, and also that some of these incomes are not very regular incomes also around it. They are like doing small time businesses there.
Okay.
So business comes in, works come in there. They're able to accumulate some money, but not able to regularly save that much of money for, let's say, a down payment. And for them to obtain a microfinance, as well,
all right.
it points a difficulty.
Okay, so that's why I haven't gone to Madhusudan for a particular reason. Madhusudan, we're saying that, okay, there is this whole pent-up demand for sub 10 lakh rupee homes. Now, if I look at the profile of the person who should be buying this 10 lakh rupee homes, there's hardly any bank who's willing to give loans to that category of people, isn't that a big question mark as well? How will they get money to even buy a home which actually cost them 10 lakhs or below?
See, I totally agree with you because, see, 90% of the demand that's there for the sub 10 lakh homes comes actually from people who do not have access to the financing at all. Because access to financing, like you were saying earlier, the houses are built for the top 5%. Also, the financing is also available only for the top 5%. So we need to make that, start building that change where, you know, people without the full documentation for income, they have incomes. The only question is, you know, how do you use either technology or, you know, your conversations to make an assessment of what is a person's actual income, or you don't need to be precise, obviously, but you need to have some rough idea of what the income is. We are a company which does only this, where we are providing loans only to people who do not have the documentation.
Madhusudan Menon, affordable housing, a sum of 4,000 crores was allocated to National Housing Bank to increase the flow of cheaper credit for affordable housing, and this happened in the first maiden budget of the finance minister when he just come to power. Where has that credit gone? Has it reached anybody in the system?
Some of it has, but some of it hasn't.
Okay.
So it came with a lot of strings actually. By the time it flowed through from the government to the NHB to the housing finance companies or to the banks, it came with many stringent conditions such as an on-lending cap, which said that if you were borrowing the money from NHB at 7.2 or 7.3%, you could not lend it onward to a customer at anything more than 9.8%. So they had defined a 2.5% spread, as a result of which most housing finance companies and banks could not even access that money. So I suspect that a lot of that money did not even get spent because there were not too many claimants for it.
Arun Mishra, why would you know, it's a very high risk category loan, isn't it? When you're giving to people at that level, 2% it's okay to have that kind of a spread when you're giving to a very safe strata of society who have great repaying capacity. But to put that kind of a cap on what they can charge the end customer, was it necessary, and why was it necessary?
You see, when you talk about these extremely poor people, we handle this issue. It has to be a combination of some kind of a financial support by the government also, whether by way of capital subsidy or by way of interest subsidy. You might remember that we had also set up a trust which was guaranteeing the repayment to the banks.
Credit guarantee scheme.
The credit
and it happened
guarantee.
during Ajay Makan's time. What happened to that?
No, it happened during, it happened during that time. And the trust has already been established. The money has also been transferred. And the trust was supposed to active. This is basically to give some kind of a comfort to the banks and to the financial institutes to give loan to the people, to the poorest of the poor.
So are you saying that the banks are not using it and it's their problem and really not the government's problem then?
I think at that time when this trust was established during my time, so at that time we had kept a limit of 5 lakh rupees because we had done the calculation and we thought that maybe 5 lakh rupees is something, because our experience showed that, you know, most of the poor people, if the total property is about 10 lakh rupees, they will like to spend about 30 to 35% of that money from their own sources. You know, they borrow, they do whatever. So we thought the 5 lakh rupees will be sufficient, and that's how the whole trust was designed. But maybe now that will require revision, and in case you can bring it up to 10 lakh rupees, I think that will give a lot of assurance to the banks or to the financial institutes that initial capital has already been given to the trust, and that's also being managed by the National Housing Bank.
Okay. Sriram Mahadevan, do you find that, I mean, you have actual customers out there who are buying your homes. You've been selling homes launched in Bohisar, one market where you have launched affordable homes. Do you find that your customers struggles to get home loans?
No, not really. Actually, the good aspect is, I think, so far as financial inclusion part is concerned or availability of the finance is concerned, I think that particular ecosystem has developed over the last couple of years. In fact, if we analyze our set of customers, there would be around 30 to 35% of customers who belong to informal segment. When I say informal segment, obviously, they don't have any documented income proof. And some of the profiles are the drivers who have taken loans, street vendors who have got loans and purchased our homes, and we have been very strict in actually not selling it to the investors, and we have been targeting end users, and we are feeling very much vindicated when these kind of customers have actually come forward and bought our home, and we have been able to actually tie it up with a 360-degree kind of a solution in terms of housing finance company.
But Sriram, are you doing this with outside housing finance companies, or is Mahindra doing that with its, its subsidiary financing companies? Now that's another big question. You're a large group, you can have those tie-ups, but not everybody can do that.
No, Manisha, I wanted to break that myth. Yes, Mahindra does operate as a federation, but at the same time, it is not Mahindra Rural Home Finance who have got the maximum business out of affordable housing venture.
Who are the guys who are giving the loans? We want to talk about them. We really want to highlight them, because I keep hearing everybody from HDFC to SBI, they're all concentrating on the top 5 or maybe 8% of the market.
Let me tell you, the new baby in the block is Jaya is not here, but it is VBSC's financing arm, which is HFFC, who are doing pretty well so far as our housing segments are, both the projects are concerned.
Okay.
Then we have also seen formal sector banks like Axis Bank taking a lead in terms of utilizing the priority sector lending, and they have come out with customized product for our projects, and it has done so far. They have been able to do well so far.
Okay, fair enough. I think we have done quite a bit in the first segment. I think when we come back, where should these houses and flats be built is another big question that's always debated. How far outside of a main city can you go to actually make affordable homes? Will people really live there? There are people who've got great experience. We heard Mr. Garg say that he's building 30 kilometers away from where our studio in Delhi is. So we'll find out what are the challenges of building in the city, outside the city, and is affordable housing within the city ever possible or not? Stay with us. Affordable homes in India? That's the big question that we're asking. We have right before the break established that, look, anything above 25 lakhs, let's not call it affordable. We can stretch the 10 lakh figure, which the government believes, because RBI said that that's affordable homes, to 25 lakhs because land costs and construction costs have gone up. But above 25 lakhs is clearly not affordable homes. So that has to be actually established. And now moving on. 6 crores is the figure that the finance minister said we need to build in terms of affordable homes. Urban India, 2 crores, and rural India, 4 crores. But if you look at the KPMG report, it says that India will require 11 crore houses by 2022, which need to be built at a rate of, and look at this figure, it is astounding, 35,000 homes every day with an investment of $2 trillion. David Walker, we got 14,000 crores in this budget, and here we're staring at a figure of $2 trillion. So where is the disconnect, or is it just that it's become so fashionable for the government to talk about affordable homes, and it must talk about it in every budget, and therefore it does?
Yeah, it was an interesting number to see in the budget, where he mentioned 14,000 crores to deliver the 6 crore homes. That's about 2,300 rupees per home. So I guess you can buy a toaster with that, but it's not really going to help you to buy a home. I mean, coming back a little bit to the points that were made before, I think the way that you can, we've got $2 trillion number from KPMG. I was thinking that if you were doing just the 6 crore homes and they 10 lakhs a home, that's about $1 trillion. It's 60 lakh crores. Mm-hmm. So to get the finance for that, it really has to come from mortgage finance. I think that's the only place that it's possible for it to be sourced from. And if you look at the Indian figures, the ratio, 9% is the current ratio of mortgage to GDP. That has to go up significantly to come to more developed environment standards. Okay. So if you've got estimates of $1 to $2 trillion economies, so if you take the mortgage rate up to 80 or 90%, that's where you get $1 trillion from.
Okay. Extremely interesting. I think you made this point before also, David, that, the mortgage to GDP ratio is so less. So again, it's a chicken and an egg situation. And I think Raghav Garg helped me out out here to understand, are there not enough homes being built, or is there not enough money available to build these homes, or is there not enough money? We've established that at least for those who want to take a loan to buy a home, that's available. In some form or the other, it's available. So what is the missing link? This figure keeps getting repeated, but you tell us what your experience has been.
I think all the three are there. I'm sitting with a lot of cash. I want to make affordable housing project, so money is not a problem. There are people who want to buy a home in sub 20 lakhs or 15 category with even with today's resources, with money available with them. Only thing is, why aren't they being built?
Yeah.
And idea is, I mean, there's no conducive ecosystem to build houses.
Okay.
So what is happening is people sitting at the center are talking about a lot of macro policies, but when you actually go out in the field at the micro level, your maps, sanctioning authorities, the state government, the approval processes, the clearances, the bylaws that govern housing, they are not in the place. So whatever you decide in Delhi, the Babu sitting in Bhopal maybe, or Indore maybe, or Jaipur maybe, he does not know that these are the factors.
Okay.
So, for example, I mean, UP government has come out with a wonderful Samajwadi Yojana for affordable housing. But now the mandate is that they are asking for a car park for every house. Now, when you would say a car park for every house...
A car park in an affordable housing project?
It's a car park for every 100 square meters of FAR.
And the bylaws
so
say
that's
that?
why. So that becomes challenge. Now, if I have the money, the project is not viable. Yeah.
Right. What's happening here, Mr. Mishra? I mean, how can you call a project affordable and then have a bylaw which says that please provide car parking in an affordable housing project? Why is there so much disconnect between central and state
100
policy?
square meter FAR, yeah.
And you know, why don't policymakers get it? Even at state level, forget central level. Rahul's already said that it's a state subject. Where's the message missing?
Yeah, I agree with you. When you want to take up an affordable housing project, obviously the development control norms and rules that are available in the state or in the development authority or the municipality will have to be re-looked into. And in many cases, we also found that insisting on a car parking for an affordable housing project is not feasible, not desirable. In fact, the Affordable Housing Task Force Committee specifically recommended that it should be done away with, and we should change it to suit the requirements of the people who are going to be allotted those houses. Having said that, I really don't know if money is that abundantly available.
Okay.
Because when you want to build such huge number of houses, like 60 million houses, you require a lot of money. And the money has to come from the government sources. The budget has its own limitations. This figure that you spoke about, 14,000 crores, is obviously not meant to construct all the 6 crore houses. It cannot do that.
So you need private participation. So for private participation, I think builders have had this big demand for a long time. Just give us an interest so that we can access long-term capital from banks. Do at least give single window clearance. Forget about the homes that you're building for the top 5%, but at least give us single window clearance for affordable homes and reduce our time cycle. I mean, VVHC, we just spoke about it. Mr. Mahadevan mentioned it, but the fact is that they are struggling to build affordable homes. Isn't that, Suresh? I mean, Sriram, it's a big issue in terms of just the cycle of approvals that you have to go through to get to an affordable project.
See, Manisha, let us understand one thing. If private developers have to come into this space and they need to join the party, then there has to be some, if you want it to be a kind of a CSR activity, then a group like Mahindra can do 1 or 2 projects. But if you really want to establish it as a business, then obviously the business rests on a high volume and low margin with a quicker turnaround, which can possibly give you a better return on capital employed. So one of the biggest determinant in that is the approval time cycles. If you ask me, the one single thing which can actually help the private developers come to the party is if the single window clearance is brought, and if we are able to be, we are sure enough to get the approval, say within a time bound 30 days, 60 days or 3 months maximum. If we know that this is what is going to come, see for example our project, despite being targeting this segment, the approval time cycles, as Raghav said, that finally good intents need to be backed by actions. So there is a center which has noble intentions, but land is state subject, approvals are state subject. So finally, the news has to trickle down to the last level Babu, who needs to understand that, okay, this is for affordable housing segment and we need to act fast. So if that happens, I think that will be a big boost, and you will see more and more private developers possibly participating along with us. And this is such a big underserved market. If more and more developers come in, the ecosystems develop, you will see more and more supplies coming up.
Madhusudan Menon, I've always heard from the developers that the biggest challenge is approvals and the biggest challenge is land cost. Do you buy that? I mean, you've been studying the market fairly well enough. So wear the cap or the hat from the industry perspective. Is that going to remain a big challenge? Then that brings me to the big question. Then should the government not just be building affordable homes? Because not too many are going to bite that bullet.
I really think that, approval times are a significant contributor to the overall cost of the apartment to the end buyer. We have already solved this problem as far as the credit issues are concerned. So Mr. Mishra was saying earlier about the Credit Guarantee Corporation, and that assumes that there is a credit problem. And what we are saying is that there is no credit problem in this country because people do pay. We have done loans and we have not had any significant credit problems that we are seeing in our portfolio. And if you ask any HFC, they will confirm whether they are financing the bigger apartments or the smaller apartments. Then buyers' credit ethics are pretty strong. So we need to solve this problem for the creation of new homes. So it is people like Raghav Garg here or, Sriram who are building these homes, and the flow of financing, the flow of capital has to be focused towards the creation of new homes. And then the credit for the end buyer will automatically follow because people are getting increasingly comfortable with that.
All right.
And
So,
solve it.
all right. Go ahead, Mr. Mishra.
Look at the data available. Even though almost about 10% of the total bank finance and HDFC finance goes to the housing sector, most of it goes to the above 10 lakh category, above 25 lakh category. So for housing stock which is below 10 lakh rupees or even below 25 lakh rupees, that money is not available even with the banks and even with the housing development finance companies. That's why I think we really need to target them. Otherwise, just to say that credit is available is not going to solve the problem. And that's why we had specifically requested that there should be a separate subcategory for these people. Otherwise, the banks will continue to give the money to those people where the risk is limited. Where the risk is not very high.
Okay.
So that's why I think there is a credit problem which has to be addressed in a positive manner.
Okay, fair enough. David, you've heard both sides of the story. It is like you say, it's a great market. I have not seen any market where you see so much of pent-up demand and at least tons of developers or industry players not jumping into it. There's definitely a huge problem why developers, well-intentioned developers, are very, very careful about getting into affordable home segment. So is it about approvals? If you get a single window clearance, would you get into affordable homes?
I don't think it's sufficient to be a changer. No, I mean, building below 10 lakhs cannot be done without subsidy.
Let's take it 25 lakhs. So you're saying 10 lakhs below you cannot do without getting actual government subsidy or land from the government. Will that work?
You'd need land, certainly. I mean, if you're going to be building a 500 square foot apartment, which is maybe an affordable housing, the cheapest you could do it on a low-rise basis would be 1,000 rupees a square foot. So I guess that puts you at 5 lakhs. But if you're doing anything that's involving multi-stories, you're going to be spending probably 2,000 rupees a square foot. So even without land cost, the pure cost of construction is more than what can be done. So you can't really meet it without some sort of
government subsidy.
So we
are saying that under 10 lakh homes, you cannot build without PPPs, public-private participation. It cannot be a business that developers can do alone. Are we in agreement to that? Mr. Garg, are you in agreement to that? That no more is it possible for your company to do sub 10 lakh homes without government participation? You're shaking your head. But you just said that it's not possible for you to build homes under 10 lakhs anymore. The cost of construction and land has gone up.
It can be done. It can be done. It cannot be done in Bombay. It cannot be done in Bombay or Delhi, but it can be done in other cities of the country. I mean, you can do it in Kanpur, you can do it in Lucknow, you can do it in Ghaziabad, you can do it in Bulandshahr, Hapur. I mean, there are remaining 4 crore houses. It can very well be done there.
Okay, so they can be done on sub 10 lakh homes, but maybe in tier 2 cities, tier 1 cities is difficult, under 10 lakh and 10. If urban housing 2 crores has to be created, then are we agreeing to the fact, Neeraj, come in here, that you do need public-private participation? At least urban homes, that stock cannot be created sub 10 lakh. Maybe then we need to move to something like a rental housing scheme.
Of course, I would say that if you just step back a bit, on this, that, from a housing perspective on the affordable side, it has to be a change in a complete mindset, there. Because if you look at any other industry also, whenever they've tried to approach a rural area aspect of it or a low income side of it, it has required a different ecosystem to get developed over there. You talked about the initial part that, that the developers have a mindset to the 5% aspect of it, but during the program, we just kind of walked over and said that even the government in some sense, even the financing sector also in some sense has a similar kind of mindset over there. Right. Because that is what was selling at that point in time. But today, if you want to look at it, just contrast it, if you look at China, for that matter, because we end up comparing ourselves with China quite a number of times. China's own target, for 5 years is 36 million homes, there. And they achieved construction start for like 25 million homes, and they closed completion for 15 million homes, within the period of last 3 years over there. And their own target is 36 million as China as a country. And they're investing $1 trillion, every year, from a housing point of view there. We are investing about $150 billion kind of number over there. And 1 trillion has the maximum participation is the private sector participation over there. The government is unlocking the land. The government is making the approvals faster. The government is ensuring that the norms have been sanitized, from the building point of view there. And then the credit is available. The similar thing is what you require in India as well to ensure that we are able to move it forward.
All right, I think you've summed it up. We could probably just wrap out the debate. The ecosystem is missing. But let me hear some more views on how to fix this ecosystem, because otherwise it is just going to remain a big hyperbole that we need to create affordable housing, we need to have homes for everybody in India. It's never going to get done. Right after the break, we come back and get concluding remarks from all our panelists. Stay with us. Discussion. Is it very, very fashionable now to talk about affordable homes? Policymakers do it, developers talk about it, whether it's a NaREDCO or a CREDAI meet, you hear that buzzword, affordable housing. But nobody, literally nobody has a clue on how to get the figures or the numbers right. In fact, how to even move forward on it. Sriram Mahadevan, you've said a lot of things, but you are attempting, and in a very, very positive manner, to build affordable homes. There are many challenges, but if you were to just give us some takeaways that more people or more developers, private participants enter into this field, what would it be? What needs to be done? Single window clearance we've established. What more?
Manisha, see, we are talking about 600 million people living out of cities by 2030. So that's a huge figure. So lot many countries don't have that kind of a population. And if we have to attack this, I don't think it's only government can do it. Private partnership is required. And if you ask me, one of the key factors through which the cost of ownership, and this is something which we have been advocating for a long time, almost 30 to 35% goes in taxes, and that is ultimately passed on to the end user, which takes the cost of the flat up. So if something is done, for example, in Rajasthan, they have done it. Stamp duty is 10 rupees flat. So something of that sort, if it is implemented and with the right intent, if it is done, targeting at the bringing down the cost of ownership, and that is what Mahindra has been again and again advocating. We are not looking at any benefit which you need to pass on to the private developers. What you see is that how can we create that ecosystem to bring the cost of ownership down? If we are able to attack that in telecom, we have been able to do it. Our rate per minute is the lowest in the world. So I don't think this is also a misnomer. Something needs to be, we all know what needs to be done, only it needs to be put into action. Apart from single window, if you ask me, the biggest item is the taxation part which needs to be attacked.
All right, so bring down the cost of ownership. You've just said that everybody knows what needs to be done. You know, every 3 months we have this discussion and I hear the same points, but nothing is getting done. Arun Mishra, do you have any exciting ideas on how we need to go? Maybe a radically different idea, not build the stock, rent the stock, anything. But we got to give homes. It's a basic right of everybody in this country.
I'm sure the government must be thinking about various options, but let me accept that 20 million, even for the urban sector, is a huge number. And unless we take many actions simultaneously, this number cannot be achieved. I was going through the site of the ministry yesterday. Till this year, the total number of houses that could be constructed under one of the schemes was just about less than 10,000. So when you're talking about 10,000 or talking about 20 million, it's a huge number. So it has to be a combination of things. Number one, we have already discussed something, like for instance, accessibility to land, change of the tax regime, change of the development control norms, availability of cheap finance, not finance at a very expensive rate, and then subsidy wherever it is required. All these things will have to be put together, and of course a very, very important role will have to be given to the private sector. And the other two important things which need to be focused is that, remember, out of the 19 million shortages that we have at the moment, 15 million of those are because of upgradation. I mean, those houses which require upgradation. You don't have to relocate them. You upgrade them where they are. For instance, in a city like Bombay, 40% of the total housing stock is less than 100 square foot.
Right.
100 square feet. So why do you need to give them 500 square feet houses if these people, if you can manage it in such a manner that more and more people can be adjusted?
So you're talking about in situ development of slums, isn't it?
Precisely. 15 million houses can be developed in situ, which will bring down the requirement of
Who
land
will build
outside.
them, Mr. Mishra? That's the whole thing. You know, look at Dharavi. Is this just a case and example on how we have never, there's so many political vested interests, we've just not been able to get everybody on board.
You see, one of the solutions that we had suggested is giving title, land title to the people who are there. You don't give them a permanent title, but give them some kind of a title which allows them to access finances from the banks and from other places. That is something which has to be done. The second thing is amend the rent control laws. If you amend the rent control laws, more and more people will like to build new houses and give them on rent. 27% of India lives in rental housing. So that's a huge requirement which can be met. So it has to be a combination of many things put together in a mission mode in case we're able, even in case you want to achieve this 20 million target. And it has to be done in the next 6 years' time. So the time is not very...
Less than 6 years in a mission mode. I thought that's where we were. I mean, when you had a clear majority government saying that that's my mission and vision, we thought 9 months later we would have some progress on it. But none of it has happened. Well, gentlemen, we're going to wrap out here with the hope that some of this will reach the finance ministry. Maybe if the direction comes from the central government, states will also take up some of the causes. Taxes, always a difficult thing, whether anybody would let go of taxes, but for affordable housing, they must actually let go. Thanks very much, all of you, for joining me. Affordable housing will always remain on our agenda, and we will keep highlighting the issues around it. Keep coming back to us on the Realty Debate. Green, affordable, two things that we are very, very proud of highlighting as a media house, and we will continue to do so. Thanks for watching.